Hello, everybody, and welcome to Ladies of the PGS. I'm your host, Mmmm, and today we have with us Catherine Cook. How are you?
All right.
Catherine, it's such a pleasure to have you here on Ladies of the PGS. We're going to be talking about the best movies of 2023. And Catherine, I know that this year was what I would call atypical when it comes to a movie year, but what an extraordinary year it's been with so many top performing movies, often in places that we least expected. And Catherine, you know, it's no secret, you and I talk about movies all the time. So we're always talking about entertainment and cinema. I was really curious. I have a list of some of my favorite movies of 2023, but I'd like to start with you. What are some of the best movies, in your opinion, that 2023 had to offer?
I came up with a list of 9 films. The first is Inside, with Willem Dafoe. He plays an art thief, and he gets trapped inside this high-rise, high-tech apartment, and he's there for several months and going a bit stir-crazy, and you watch as he goes from being art thief to artist. And it's quite interesting. Very well shot.
Yeah, it's funny because I've actually seen this film, and I didn't think anybody I knew had actually seen this film, Catherine. And it is one of those films that I love where there isn't a lot of dialogue to it. It's just Willem Dafoe for a good portion of this film, and he comes into this apartment, this very upscale apartment that has very valuable artwork. And he's there to make a lot of money and profit from the absence of tenants. And this is something that he obviously does. He's a thief. Catherine, I think it was one of the most interesting performances I've seen of Willem Dafoe. I'm looking for a decent picture here, where he gets into this apartment. It's very upscale. It's very different. It's very modern. The apartment has some very specific security features that make it hell for Willem Dafoe to survive once he realizes that he's, you know, essentially I'll say he's in a tight spot. I'm not going to go too much into it. But Catherine, I have to say, you know, it's not easy to do these, you know, one-man shows where you're the one person in the film. You know, I was really impressed with Willem Dafoe's performance in this. And I think...
Willem.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I was really impressed with Willem Dafoe's performance in this. And you talk about him becoming an artist as he's inside of this person's home. And it really takes him in a transformation in a way that was completely different from where I thought this film was going to go. What did you think, Catherine? Did you think it was going to go in this direction?
No, because it just seemed, because at first it was feeling very believable, real world, but the level of absurdity that there not being a way to unlock the door from the inside was a bit much. And the fact that, like, even when you would think that whoever owns this apartment, when they're gone, that they would have housekeeping come in, because otherwise the whole place is going to be layered with dust and it just grime. Because notice how, you know, none of the furniture is covered or anything like that. It's like the house or the apartment wasn't really prepared for somebody leaving for, you know, several months at a time. So it didn't really make a whole lot of sense. So I was surprised that it goes on as long as it does, and how even the structure that he makes to try and get to the ceiling is practically an art piece in and of itself. And even though the apartment is like really wide open concept with these big windows, it feels very constrictive and like more like a prison cell, really. Not just because he's literally trapped in there. It just staring at this super ultra modern room like this for so long, it's just, I kind of want to get out of the room. And I like it how he's like watching the people in the security cameras. That's another thing. The fact that whoever lives in this apartment has the ability to like basically hack into or granted access to the security cameras in the whole building, but they have no way to contact the front desk security through the computer. So that was a little weird, but I like how he's like inventing stories about the people that he's seeing, trying to do whatever he can to not go completely crazy. And it kind of goes by at a nice brisk pace. You would think something like this would be really slow, but it wasn't. I thought it was really well done.
It was, and he had to be on his toes. And certainly, you know, for all practical purposes, he's a master thief. And so he's not an ordinary kind of like smash and grab kind of guy. He was looking for very specific things, very high value. And it was quite fascinating what he found in this apartment. And of course, you know, I think that sometimes when you see apartments like this, these ultra expensive, ultra high security, ultra unique apartments for the elite and wealthy, there's a lot of things that people can assume. You know, Catherine, I was even surprised at how things were shut on and off in this apartment. Every detail was thought of, and it really was a very surprising film. Not anything I knew we were going to get in 2023. I think that this film, anybody who wants to see something that is really entertaining and certainly artful, go ahead and check out Inside. Catherine, I agree with you. I think this pick was one of the best of 2023.
Yeah, for sure.
So what else do you have on your list, Catherine? I'm letting you go first.
Oh, okay, so next one I saw would be John Wick Chapter 4. That was, I'd say, easily the best of the 4 John Wick movies, because the first 3 I have problems with all 3 of those ones, but this one just has it all. It has the set design, the art direction, the choreography, the pacing, how they change up the choreography so it's not just the same thing like going on for, you know, tens of minutes on end, like with a lot of the other movies where it's just him with the same pistol. It's like here they really change it up and make it really exciting. A story that you can actually kind of get behind. And yeah, it doesn't, you don't necessarily have to have seen the previous movies to get into it. It's a pretty solid, it's like, okay, he kills the guy who's above the high table and now he's got to pay for it. But I didn't think a movie, because like, I was kind of a fan of the first 3, but not like super over the moon like everybody else was. But this one was just, wow. I saw it 5 times in less than a week. It's the first movie ever where I've walked right out of the theater seeing it and turned right back around and bought another ticket for the next showtime. It was that good, and that it was just so, everything was firing on all cylinders. I put it in the top echelon of best action films ever made, alongside Predator, Die Hard, and Mad Max Fury Road, like in Terminator 2. It's that good.
Yeah, I agree with you on this one as well, Catherine. I think I remember you telling me that you had seen it at least at the 4th viewing of the film. You'd said, "I'm going to go see it again," and I was thinking to myself, "This film must be extraordinary," and it was. It's such a fun ride. I think that it does what it sets out to do, and it's hard to be the 4th film in a franchise and make an impact. But I think this one did that. Certainly enjoyable to see this, guys. I think John Wick Chapter 4 really delivered. When we got a lot of, you know, we've gotten a lot of franchises where they're in the 4th film or the 5th film and they can't seem to produce anything that we want to see again. But this was not the case with John Wick. So I agree with you. I really enjoyed John Wick as well, Catherine. What's your next pick of the year for 2023?
My next one was one called Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret, which is based on a novel. And I really liked it because it was a movie like about real people for a change. It wasn't a franchise. It wasn't a sequel or a remake. It wasn't like a genre picture. It was just like a teen, middle school girl moving to a new town, growing pains, that kind of thing. And it was like a very grounded, down to earth type of story. And it's like, you know, the type of movies that Hollywood used to make all the time, like low to mid budget, you know, dramas, or this one's like a comedy drama. And it's like, I didn't expect to like it as much as I did. I think I saw it as a double feature with Evil Dead of all things, but it was definitely the better movie of the 2. And I was like really surprised that it's like, wow, I left the theater thinking Hollywood needs to get back to making movies like this. Like, you don't need tons of visual effects and big name people in it. I mean, yes, you have a couple big names in there, but for the lead actress, it's like, I really thought this was a cute movie and really well done.
Yeah, and certainly for many of us, and I'm sure you may also be on this list, this was a book that so many of us read as a young adult book, if you will, Catherine, if I remember correctly. That, and there's another one.
I had not read it. I had heard about it over the years, but I had never read it.
Yeah, it was very, very popular. And certainly I'm so glad that they made this into a film. And I have not actually seen this film, Catherine. So I need to put this on my list of films to see, especially upon your recommendation. And I've only heard good things about it. And I'm looking forward to seeing this and seeing it on the screen. And it is wonderful to see these sort of coming of age. I'm assuming it's a coming of age film. Yeah. It's wonderful to see this. And you're right. We used to get so many of these. it's nice to see them coming back. So guys, make sure you put are you there, God? It's me, Margaret, on your list. Catherine, what is your next film?
The Super Mario Brothers movie. This movie was like the perfect encapsulation of what the Nintendo Mario Brothers universe of games is. It's silly, it's, you know, over the top. Not all the voices were as well cast as they could have been, but it was so many homages to all the different games. A fun story. Jack Black steals the show as Bowser. I mean, yeah, it's not a movie I would put up in like Best Picture category, obviously, but given how long Nintendo and these characters have been around and the previous poor adaptation live action decades ago, it's like, wow, they made it. And it's almost like, this is what you guys should have done a long time. Like, you could have a whole universe of Mario Brothers films, but this, like, I thought was a perfect encapsulation of the IP. It's like, if you want to sell somebody on, you know, shelling out the big bucks for the Nintendo console and those character games, like, show them this. Like, this is what you're in for. And as a reflection of that, I thought it was one of the best video game movies also, because it just captures the whole spirit of the game. That's usually something that's very difficult, because no matter what video game it is, everybody's experience playing it is unique to them, which is why it's so hard to make a good video game movie. But this one wasn't an issue, because it's just so playful and all over the place. Yeah, again, aside from some of the voice actors, which weren't not necessarily some of the best choices, but I thought it was a really good representation of that and really fun.
Yeah, I agree 100%, Catherine. You know, when I heard this film was coming out, I had no idea what to expect and what it was going to be like. And that serenade in the beginning where Bowser just completely knocks my socks off about how much he's in love with Princess Peach is just such a winner. Shows the capability of Jack Black. When you put him in the right frame, when you use him in the right way in a film, he can bring you into that world. And even if you didn't know anything about Super Mario, you're going to find this film entertaining. Like you, I'm a huge fan of Super Mario. I had a Nintendo 64 that had Duck Hunt and Super Mario on it. And you were right, Catherine, about the gameplay. It literally has a section where they are literally playing the game we all know and recognize. They didn't have to put that in there, but they did it for us. They did it with love. Catherine, there's even a part where he has to train, just like if you were doing the tutorials in the game. I thought this was so clever. We got sort of like the one-dimensional, then the three-dimensional as the years upgraded, you know, and even Donkey Kong, I think I saw, and Frogger in there, Catherine. So many fun titles, a great story. This was so much fun to watch. I think the three-dimensional aspects of it, Catherine, where, you know, the characters are kind of flying through, you know, different dimensions and stuff. It was fun to watch that. And I've watched this film more than once and marveled over how much they put in. They did it for the fans, Catherine. This was for the fans. And you can tell when you watch this film, it feels so good. If you are a fan of Super Mario, it's not a surprise. This film did, of course, cross the $1 billion mark, and it deserves it, Catherine. Really one of the best video game adaptations I've ever seen. I agree with you 100%. This is definitely one of my favorites too of 2023. All right, Catherine, what's the next film?
Next is one that's definitely not going to be everybody's cup of tea, but I really liked it, is Fool's Paradise, where Charlie Day plays this mute who's released from a mental institution because the doctor's like, who is this guy? Why is he here? Oh, does he have like an insurance? Oh, no, just drop him off on a bus in East LA. He'll figure it out. And he gets discovered by this wannabe agent played by Ken Jeong. And what transpires is like this whole odyssey as he's going through Hollywood. And it's a scathing indictment of just the whole Hollywood business and the whole Hollywood system, except he's just mute the entire time. And a lot of the humor comes from feeling like a throwback to something that Charlie Chaplin or, you know, Buster Keaton type. And it's a little slow in the middle, and I could see why a lot of people didn't care for it. It got like practically review bombed, but I thought it was really clever and really funny because it was just totally unique. Like, it felt more like a legit, I mean, it's not a silent movie because a bunch of other characters talk in it, but it felt like something, I mean, aside from the modern setting, but of that would have come out of that era, like that type of story. And it's just totally mocking everything that's Hollywood and everything that's that whole celebrity culture. They skewer that and all of it, and I thought it was really clever and very wholly unique. And also written and directed by Charlie Day as well.
Oh, that's very impressive to star in the film and also to direct it. That's, like so difficult to even accomplish that. And I think that these films are needed. I think sometimes there does need to be, sort of like a deep kind of analysis of the current, I guess you would call it the current, I'm trying to verbalize and I can't do this. The current social norms of Hollywood, if you will.
Yeah.
And I love films that do this, especially if the character doesn't have anything to say. You're just watching what's happening and you're realizing it. But it sounds fantastic. And certainly maybe an appropriate film. I think Fool's Paradise 2 could be the version of what is Hollywood like during a strike, Um, so certainly I want to check this one out, Fool's Paradise. It seems really, really interesting. Catherine, what's your next pick?
Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. If the third one in this Into the Spider-Verse trilogy sticks the landing, then it'll be on the table for one of the best, not just comic book trilogies, but one of the best trilogies ever. The animation absolutely blew me away. The story was really engaging and really deep. It was emotional. It was dark. And it has a few great plot twists in there that you didn't see coming. And it's, really funny. But mostly it's just that type of animation was just so jaw-droppingly gorgeous. I've not seen an animated film that looks that good. And with all the characters being so well thought out. And like the first one, you have other versions of Spider-Man in the multiverse, which are kind of funny, and they're playing it for laughs. But in this one, they really dive into their various backstories a bit more and fleshing them out more as three-dimensional characters. And I thought it was done like very well and definitely worthy of all the praise it's been getting.
Yeah, I agree 100%, Catherine. And one thing that I kind of noticed about this film is that it feels like it is more than one film together. It feels like three very distinct films. And for me, at least, I felt like the Spider-Gwen, I hope that's the character, in the beginning, there was enough content on her alone just to even have a film of her own if you wanted. And then the segments with, of course, Miles, which are stunning. And then, of course, Into the Spider-Verse could have been a third film. You got so much in this film. They even had my favorite character, which I didn't know he was going to be in here. Spider-Punk has and will always be my favorite Spider-Man. I had no idea I was going to see Spider-Punk in this film. So I was very surprised by that. But we also even got to see even beyond the Spider-Verse. So I think that this is really interesting. They didn't have to include all that. They could have, cut it short or just given us a little bit. This certainly was, just such a feast. If you like everything about, let's say, modern Spider-Man and this foray into spectacular animation that we saw, the 2018 film, Catherine won Best Animated Feature, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not surprised if this one will win it as well for the awards coming up. Really mesmerizing colors and the flow of the film is beautiful. We even got to see some cool relationship comments, where people are talking to one another and it makes sense. And they're kind of trying to figure things out. And I like those scenes where people are having interactions and trying to figure out like, what's going on? What is this? Real life interactions that make sense. I think this was really just such a spectacular animation as well. Just such a wonderful film to watch. It made a huge amount at the box office too. I mean, for an animated feature of this type, I was very surprised. I thought it was going to make a little bit more, but it made a lot. So certainly I know they were very happy with the outcome of this. And I don't know anybody who doesn't like this film. I actually haven't heard a negative review on it. So it's a great pick. Catherine, what is your next pick of 2023?
Oppenheimer.
Yes.
That's, I'm going by like release month by month kind of thing.
Sure.
I mean, what else can be said about it that hasn't already been said? Once again, Nolan is using his penchant for playing around with time to do 3 different storylines in 3 different time periods. All the stuff in color is subjectively told from his perspective, which is why it's leaning very heavily in Oppenheimer's favor in terms of a biopic rather than, it's not very critical of him. Whereas the black and white segments are a bit more on point with kind of what's actually going on. The performances were fantastic. Cillian Murphy, Robert Downey Jr. especially, even Benny Safdie as Edward Teller. I thought he was great. I like again, it's a movie that's 3 hours of mostly just people talking. And it's like really engaging, especially with the edit. and I didn't get bored with it. I saw this movie 8 times in theaters because I had that Regal pass, and it's a great way to get free AC in the summer. But I thought it was so well done. Even the way they did the Trinity test was very unique to read about, and how rather than just recreating the typical video footage that we've all seen, it's like the super close up of the extra flames within it, which I thought, okay, that's kind of interesting. So yeah, it's like we reviewed this before on the channel, and I just thought it was really well done, and it feels like you'll get to a moment which feels like a climax, like the Trinity test, and it's like, oh wait, there's still like another hour almost to go, but they find a way to reel you back in so that it doesn't feel like it's starting over again. It's just, continuing through the story, and I thought it was a really good movie.
Yeah, Catherine, I certainly do share your sentiment on this one. I think it really was an outstanding production by cast and crew and the director. And certainly there are so many special moments in it. There's so much in it. And it is based on a Pulitzer Prize winning biography. However, even so, you don't always get something that's as spectacular as this, Catherine. It hits all the marks. And, recently we were talking about how you can't get a copy of it anywhere, a hard copy of physical media, because it's selling out everywhere, and they're trying to meet the demand of this film. Gee, this is one of these questions that I want to say. It's like, obviously, Oppenheimer is bringing physical media back big time. Over 900 million in the box office for a 3-hour film, which was shown in 70 millimeter, maybe not 70 millimeter, but let's say in regular standard definition, HD, in IMAX, in 4K.
It was 70 millimeter in IMAX. I saw that one.
Catherine, this is phenomenal what this film is doing for movies, for entertainment, at a time when we have so many articles of people saying, well, the theater is dying, this is dying. Catherine, I admit that this is not the ordinary film, and we don't get this all the time. But when you make films like this, people will go back to the theater to rewatch it, will purchase the physical media copy. They'll go to special screenings. A lot of this came out, and I think it created this incredible amount of excitement in theater and entertainment and what's possible to be done with a film. They didn't even tell all the details from the biography. Technically speaking, another one could be made about what was left out in this. I think it's just phenomenal what we got with this. I can't stop talking about it. This is actually my favorite scene. I popped up here, Catherine.
Well, especially that it's again, it's just a drama, like historical drama, and yet it pulled in $950 million. And it's like, this should be a sign to like people in Hollywood, is like, hey, this is kind of the movies that people want to see. They're not just interested in, CGI fest. They want to see stuff like this. And I hope they're taking notes, because with movies like this selling out physical copies and the studio assuring fans they're going to order more of them, it's like, well, that's really good. But yeah, that's just, I want them to, again, go back to making movies like this. And it doesn't look like it was that. I mean, I know it cost $100 million, and I think some of that has to do with the talent that was attached. But from the actual production value, it looks like something that would, again, be mostly mid-budget movie, because a lot of it's just either in boardrooms or out in the desert. It's not. They didn't have to recreate like a huge period city that much, So I really do hope we see more of these things. And the fact that people rushed out to the tune of 950 million and buying out the physical media, it just goes to show that it's not so much that physical media is dying or dead. It's that you want a worthy title to buy to take up space on your shelf. And Hollywood just hasn't been putting out a lot of worthy titles, and this is one of them.
Yeah, and Catherine, it was either you or Tom Jr. Jackson who sent us the review of, let's say, the special edition, which I don't even own the special edition, but there was a review that Bill Hunt did that I've never seen such a perfect review of a special edition of any DVD ever. Like, this was the most incredible review I've ever seen in my life. And if that alone doesn't convince a person to go ahead and pick this up for a loved one, for Christmas, for whatever, and the other thing I also do like about this, Catherine, is that we already know that people are not picking up. Yes, there is an autobiography, but not everybody's going to read it. Not everybody's going to read the autobiography. This is one of the most impressive adaptations of an autobiography I've ever seen. And this
biography.
Is really special. I'm sorry, biography.
Yeah.
Pardon me.
Yeah,
Of a-
I mean, I tried to read it and I put it down because it was clearly leaning in the super pro. It wasn't being as unbiased as it probably should have been. As I mentioned in our review, the scene when uh, Robert Downey Jr.'s character Strauss is having his meltdown in the office, talking about how he was egotistically living up the father of the atomic bomb and loved all of that and was so it's like, yeah, that's all true, but the movie conveniently excludes it, and the biography kind of downplays tries to downplay it. I'm like, I don't really like it when you whitewash things too much. But you know, to Nolan's point, he's like, we wanted to tell a subjective story. It's like, okay. And I think that was more him being swayed by having read the biography rather than studying as much of the man himself. But yeah, I it's still really great.
Yeah, and I also wanted to add a little bit to that. I bought the audiobook, so I didn't read this. I listened to the audiobook, and there's a lot in this audio. Like it's packed with so much information. But even, let's say, in the sense of when a director or a studio goes ahead and uses a little bit of artistic license, Catherine, we saw spectacular performances. Whether that was maybe not the entire truth, this was a spectacular tour de force of actors who put into context a period of time where so few people who are still alive remember that era. And I have to give a lot of credit to seeing that recreation, because we've seen a lot of TV shows and things, but this one really set the mark at a level of excellence that I haven't seen in quite some time. So it is very interesting. I just love this movie too, Catherine. What is your next pick for 2023?
This next movie, technically it counts as a 2022 movie because that's when it hit the festival circuit, but it didn't get released theatrically until August of this year. And that was the Australian horror film Talk to Me, in which these Australian teenagers and 20-somethings decide to use possession as a party trick. And it's like, okay, this sounds like it's going to be kind of wacky, but it ends up having super disturbing, awkward scenes, like the likes of which you've seen in Hereditary, and that type of drama. As the lead character, her mother's died in the past, and she at first doesn't really believe that, oh, this is people are faking it. This isn't a demonic possession, but it works. And then when her friend's little brother wants to try it, he actually sees her mother. Because the idea is that when you grab the hand, only you who is holding the hand can see the spirit of the dead person who's briefly resurrected in the room, and nobody else could see it. And you're kind of possessed and able to say whatever they're saying. And because she finds out that somebody saw her mom, she becomes obsessed with trying to repeat the trick so she could speak to her mom again, and it just goes from bad to worse. And it's like a very simple movie, low budget, a wholly unique type of idea. I mean, in terms of the way they're doing it, like they don't even really dive into how this works in because they're like teenagers at 20-somethings. They're not fazed by the fact that it actually does what it does. Like, oh yeah, I got this off a guy in Greece or whatever, you know. But I thought it was really good. I think this is one of this actress's first movies, and it was done by these guys who make a bunch of comedy skit videos on YouTube. And for their first movie to be this good, I'm like, damn, that was really great. You would have thought that this was something, you know, by a bigger director named studio, because everything was so well done. And it was actually kind of scary and suspenseful. And so I highly recommend this one.
Wow, it sounds wonderful. I'm surprised I missed this one, and I kind of feel bad. This would have been great to have taken a look at it. I'm certainly going to look at it after your suggestion, Catherine. I can't wait to see what these guys have come up with. It certainly sounds entertaining and scary and creative. And I do like seeing 20-somethings when they're sort of like figuring out things they don't know. They have no idea what they've gotten themselves into. So it is fun to see that. So I definitely will check out Talk to Me. And what is your next choice?
Killers of the Flower Moon. We just did this review recently, and while we did have our criticisms of it, I still thought it was really good in terms of the production values, the performances. Like, again, I thought Robert De Niro gave probably his best performance in a really long time. And it was still kind of an endearing story to watch, even though it does feel like it goes on a bit longer than it needs to. And while I'm still not super hot on the ending, I thought that the movie, it's still a worthwhile journey to take, and was still definitely a good movie. you could tell they did a lot of research into recreating the look of the era, even though, yeah, they should have had more of an Osage perspective. DiCaprio gives a great performance as expected, and Lily Gladstone, the scene stealer. And I think this is definitely better than Scorsese's previous film, The Irishman. So another, return to classic Scorsese form. And again, De Niro I thought was just fantastic in this. So this is one I would recommend still, despite my earlier criticisms of it.
Yeah, and I have to agree with you as well, Catherine. Certainly, we saw the most incredible chemistry between DiCaprio here in the film with De Niro as well as with Gladstone. And I was even asking, we need to see more it doesn't have to be a Western, but we need to see more productions with the three of them on screen, because the screen just explodes when they're on there. And I admit that for me, this film felt very slow going and did have some deficiencies, but I'm glad they made it. And I do encourage other people to go ahead and watch it and enjoy the film for what it is. Hopefully it will encourage other movie makers to go ahead and take a chance on something like this. Certainly, I think that what they've accomplished is certainly something to be proud of in this production. And if anything, you had mentioned that there's still a little bit more to the story that we haven't seen. There might be another version of the story coming out. Maybe someone's working on it somewhere, but I agree. I think the production value on this was incredible. The costumes and the design. So it certainly would make my list as well. Catherine, what is your next film?
The Creator by Gareth Edwards. This one I thought had a really strong marketing campaign, so I was surprised that it didn't do as well at the box office, because it's definitely a movie that demands to be seen on the big screen. It definitely feels like the movie that he wanted Rogue One to be, like when he teased this really gritty war movie and he screened that clip show of footage that wasn't actually in the real movie, but just give you the idea of it. And he shot this largely in places like Thailand and other places in Southeast Asia. And it was on a really slim budget. And for the effects to look as good as they are, on how much money it cost to this, I was like, wow, this is really visually impressive, and another important film that Hollywood should pay attention to in terms of just how it was made and conserving these budgets. Because the reason we don't get those mid-budget movies anymore that we like to talk about is because they're throwing hundreds of millions of dollars at these big blockbusters, and yet a movie like this shows that you don't need that to have compelling drama, really good effects. I connected with a lot of the characters. Yeah, the title, The Creator, doesn't really come into it as much as it could, but I was like really sucked in by the character, by the plight of the AI, and wanted to stick with them. And I thought that Josh kind of had these, a bit of mixed motivations, because he just wants to find his wife. But I thought this was really, and the ending also was not as cliche as it could have been, because it isn't precisely a super happy ending. It's not like they resolve the war for all time. They just solve this. They win we win the battle, but not the war. And it does have a bit of a sad ending as well, which was kind of like, oh wow, they actually went there, and it was like emotional and surprising. And so again, every time you see major critique of American imperialism, which was done really well. So I do think this movie deserved to be seen by a lot more people, but I think its reputation will improve over time.
Yeah, you make such a good point on that, Catherine. And certainly I think that, at least my impression of it, was that the marketing could have been stronger. Just me personally feeling, I think the way it was promoted, I would have made a few simple changes that I think would have grabbed a little bit more attention, because it was really the only film at that time doing anything like this. And certainly AI is one of the most popular topics of 2022, 2023. People should have been running to this. And I think even by putting the letters AI on the poster, which I don't even know if they did or didn't, Catherine, I'm not sure. But even, let's say they went ahead and put AI on the poster, and people would say, oh, this has to do with AI. I think they should have milked that to a level of, even if that was not, let's say, the main focus, I'm not saying it is or isn't, but they should have milked that in the marketing the way that Barbie and Oppenheimer did Barbenheimer. This should have been milked in AI. And even if you got in, you're like, oh, it wasn't so heavily AI. It's more, or some people would judge it and say, well, this doesn't feel like Chat GPT. This doesn't feel like, what we've been talking about in the strike. I feel like the topic of it should have garnered so much more attention from the general public. And I think that was maybe just a little error in the way it was promoted. It's a beautifully shot film. There are scenes in there where my breath is taken away because it feels very real.
I remember there were some weird critics out there who were saying, oh, well, AI is really unpopular right now because of the writer's strike and the actor's strike and the evils of AI. And here comes a movie which is trying to praise AI and protect it. You shouldn't make this right now. I'm like, push off. I was like, get out of here. Like, these are two completely different types of things that we're talking about. And I don't think that had anything to do with people not going to see the movie. It might have been name recognition too, because Gareth Edwards hasn't directed a movie in quite a while because he was like in director jail for a while after Rogue One. But yeah, I do definitely think it'll improve over. Like, he was even asked about that recently. He says, "What do you think about the creator? You know, the box office didn't do too well." It's like, I'll be interested in seeing where it sits in another 20 years. If people still remember it.
It's definitely going to be a cult classic. I think we all know this. It's going to be a cult classic. I think there's going to be a lot of people who are going to kind of do a deep dive into, let's say the science fiction understanding or what it contributes to modern science fiction as a film. And I think that that's something to be explored and something that you kind of have to step away from it for just a little bit to realize how much we got in this film. Catherine, it had so much in it. You didn't leave the theater feeling like you missed something or it should have had more, or, you didn't get a decent experience in the theater. This was beautifully shot. That scene, that thing, I don't even know what this thing was, this craft that they had, in addition to the acting that was beautiful. This thing, whatever this thing was, I loved it. There are certain elements in it that make you love science fiction. And certainly, I think any film that's a science fiction film that makes you love science fiction or get excited about it is worthwhile seeing. So it seems like the creator seems to do that. Catherine, what is your next film?
One that we just reviewed, The Holdovers.
Yes.
Another mid-budget movie about like real people with real problems. And you take like two curmudgeon-y type people, one of which is really unlikable, the other I kind of liked a lot. And you just it's like, oh, you're forced to be stuck together in a room for a few weeks and see if you actually come out of it all right or not. By Alexander Payne. Doesn't make movies too often. When he does, they tend to be good. This one, about a bunch of super preppy, rude, privileged kids who hate their professor and never let him forget it. And even the staff hates him, and so he gets screwed over and forced to watch over the kids who don't get to go home for Christmas simply because he would not give one privileged student with a wealthy family passing grade. Well, they're all wealthy, but one of them was a legacy donor to the school, and he wouldn't give him a passing grade because he wasn't going to fudge the grades. He's like, I don't do that here. So they punish him by making him stay over. And you think at first that, these two are going to hate each other. There's no way they're going to connect. And yet gradually over the film, they kind of do. And it is really surprising that it goes the way it does. Not exactly a happy ending, happy story per se, but it's much more bittersweet. But again, it's one of those mid-budget movies about, real people, real problems. And they go out of their way to make this feel like it's from 1970, which is when it said December 1970 and January 1971. They even put the original MPAA logos and stuff at the front to make it feel even more authentic to that. And because I saw the copyright in the corner said 1970 with all the Roman numerals, like, wait, what? It's like that. I was like, oh, okay. They're literally trying to tell us that this is when it was made. And so I thought, Paul Giamatti's really great at playing these, kind of stuck up, curmudgeon-y, cultured type characters who thinks that nobody understands them and just doesn't jive with modern culture or the youth at all. Some of my friends joked that it's almost like he's playing an older version of the Miles character from Sideways, because who else had a teaching job that he didn't like? But yeah, this I thought was quite good. And that actor there, Dominic Sessa's first role, pretty good for a starting turn. So I highly recommend this one as well.
I agree, Catherine. You and I did recently review this, and it was spectacular. And both you and I agree that this, you can actually see the lettering, as you said, Catherine, which looks like it's sort of like a 1970s throwback. Both you and I agree. We used to get movies like this all the time. So getting something like this now felt very special. It is kind of during the holidays. It's based on a holiday layover, if you will, at the school. And it does feel very special because it is a fantastic foray in storytelling, and the performances are great as well. So I think that was so important for us to see that there are directors and storytellers who still want to put stories out like this. It feels so satisfying. It's like a satisfying serving of mac and cheese or something at your holiday event. So I do feel that way about that film. Catherine, what is your next choice?
That is it for the films I've seen this year that I would consider the best. And yes, I have seen new ones like Napoleon, which didn't make the list, but those are the ones I have picked for the best.
Yeah, and I do want to mention something about let's even so I know we talked about Napoleon, and I have spoken about Napoleon. I just want to say, since you mentioned it, and if you wanted to say something briefly about it, you can, because it is a historical epic, and or whatever you want to call it. Please do. What are your comments about it, since it has gotten a lot of coverage?
I get why a lot of the French don't like it, because it's portraying him as this very boorish type of individual, which he wasn't. He was a lot more cultured. The movie completely omits all of the enlightenment that he brought to France, all the great reforms he brought. And granted, there's other terrible things he did that isn't in there. I think the movie with the intertitles at the end showing how many people died is unfairly putting all the blame on him, which isn't really true, because all of those other countries that formed the Allies hated the fact that that France had a proletariat revolution, which jeopardized everything. So it's like you're kind of backed in a corner and you have to do something about it. And Napoleon is the one who did something about it. That being said, I thought the first half of the movie was really entertaining and really well paced. And I think the fact that he and Vanessa Kirby had no chemistry is kind of the point, because in reality, she didn't really love him anywhere near as much as he loved her. For her, it was like she was much more interested in her lovers that she took. And he was, he had bitter jealousies too, taking mistresses and stuff like that. So it's kind of leaning into that aspect of it. Almost like if you were to take away the title and the medals and the uniform, he's just a man. And that seemed to be what the movie was interested in doing. Whereas the second half, like if you know the history of Napoleon, then you know what all these battles mean. But in the story, they don't really contextualize why they're showing you this. It's just like, oh, we're now showing this campaign and that campaign, but they don't really clue in the audience as to why. It's just like, oh, we're going to show this now and this now. Like one scene, he'll be talking with Alexander the First and they're getting along really well. And then 2 scenes later, oh, he's betrayed us and joined the British. It's like, wait, why? And it's like, you kind of have to polish up your historical knowledge before you go see it. I could tell as I was watching it, since there will be a version that's 2 hours longer, I could just feel where the extended bits are probably going to be. But in Joaquin Phoenix, I thought it was entertaining. I mean, it's certainly not something you go to for historical accuracy, but it's like I could see what Ridley Scott was doing, almost like a character assassination. But I mean, it was still well paced. It didn't feel that long. It just the second half of the movie, while the battle scenes and everything were very exquisitely staged, it's just like a lot of the campaigns they show in the second half just felt like they were there for the sake of being there, rather than really, because the first half you're like following his rise to power. It's like there's a clear story going on here, and the story with his love affair with Josephine, whereas the second half just kind of meanders a bit. So I didn't really put that in my top shelf, even though I still did enjoy it a bit. I gave it 3.5 out of 5.
Yeah, and I did just want to mention it because Catherine, you and I are talking about historical stories, and how it feels like this is, people want to see these things. So I think there is demand for something like this. I see them making another one. I think somebody said Spielberg might be making another one, or a series, and we know, as you said, there's going to be the extended version coming up soon. I personally wanted a more romanticized version of this. I wanted sort of like a Barry Lyndon style film where I got a lot of sort of this dangerous liaison feel to it, a little more raunchy, a little bit more, spicy version of this. If we're going to go spicy, I wanted it to go all the way, Catherine. However, I do like the attention it's bringing to Napoleon. And I don't think anybody who sees this film, the majority of people, it's going to be millions of people who see this film, whether it performs well in the box office or not is irrelevant. Millions of people will watch this. Kids in schools might watch this, right, Catherine? Kids in schools are going to be watching this.
If I know that Apple, which produced it, hasn't put any of their stuff out on physical media, so that might be a barrier depending on if they make an exception for this. But in schools, I don't know, because again, the historical accuracy, and because I think because again, the reason it's not as romantic as it could have been, like Stanley Kubrick tried to make this movie forever and he never got around to doing it. He tried and failed so many times, but it's almost like Ridley Scott wanted to portray him as, you're the guy with petty insecurities, which isn't entirely untrue, because when he found out that his wife was cheating on him, he took a mistress because he was going to be petty about it. And then he raced home to be upset about it. And like, you even have a scene where he's sitting on the couch where they're saying, I'm not susceptible to petty jealousies. I'm like, yes, you are. You're just a man like everybody else, like everybody else. And she has needs too, like, well, like everybody else. Don't even go there, you know? And so the movie seemed, I mean, it's definitely a unique take on it. So we'll see. The brutality of it might cause it not to be screened in certain schools because it is pretty violent. I think the most violent thing I saw in a movie, something I've never seen in any other film ever, was when a cannonball strikes his horse. And that was like,
yeah, that was
wow, that was just savage to see how graphic it was. It was easily the most graphic thing I saw in the whole movie. But they also showed things which he would actually do, where he would disguise himself as a commoner to wander into the place he's going to invade to kind of survey it up close and personal, like he's sneaking up with the shepherds or sneaking like a farmer with the sticks over the ice lake, looking around at the enemy encampment. Like he would do those things in reality. So I thought that was kind of neat that they showed that as well. But not top tier of the year material for me overall.
Yeah, and I agree with pretty much everything you said. And, you know, of course, I'm going to want more romance. I wanted adult love scenes. I wanted to see nudity. You know, I think it's such a big tease when Vanessa Kirby comes out with sort of like her breasts hanging out of this dress that she wears, and that's all you get, guys. That's all you get. But that's okay. You know, this is the director's vision, and I respect that. But certainly, I am glad it was made. And Catherine, we're going to see more versions of Napoleon. We might even see a version of Josephine. Who knows what happens in the future? But I did just want to get your take on that, because it has been a movie that has gotten a lot of attention. A lot of conversation has been said about it. And of course, you know that I couldn't go without mentioning this film. And I do realize that this film really is not a lot of people's favorites, but I did love this film so much. And of course, I'm going to talk about Barbie, and I'm not going to stay too long on it, other than to say that it did fulfill a lot of my what I wanted to see in Barbie. So, and I think for a lot of people, it did very well in the box office. It was a fun watch. For some it was agonizing, and I get that. However, I'm glad it was made, and I enjoyed the film, and I would recommend it, especially if you like Barbie. You might like this film. So there's already this existing billions of people out there who love Barbie, and they showed up. They showed up to see this film. It was not advertised the way I thought the film was actually going to be. I should mention that. And, you know, so when you got into the theater, it was a different experience. However, Margot Robbie and,
Ryan Gosling.
Thank you. Their performances were great. They were almost comedic at times. And, you know, this is a movie about a doll, guys. So for them to go into this level and depth and just kind of dive into it, you could tell they had fun with it. We saw a lot of stars in the film. And certainly I enjoyed it. So I did want to mention that Barbie is one of my favorite films of the year. There's another film that I wanted to mention, and this, just like one of the films you had mentioned, Catherine, this one I think it might have been from 2022. It's called The Pale Blue Eye. And the film is it's like a mystery. And I don't even know how to properly date this. It's a period piece that focuses on Edgar Allan Poe. So I liked it. I like anything dark like this. They're trying to solve a murder of cadets. I think it's West Point, but if it's not West Point, guys, please don't chew me out for that. But the point is that it's this dark, dreary, quiet murder mystery at West Point, and he's got to figure out what's going on. And I love, like, these cadets don't want to talk about what's going on. It was so much fun to watch this. It's called The Pale Blue Eye, kind of a homage to, you know, like the Telltale Heart. Of it kind of sounds like the name of something that Edgar Allan Poe would write. So if you want something a little spooky, a little kind of going into, you know, this fun foray of what the Hudson or New England area might have been, maybe not New England, but upper Hudson area was like at that time, certainly do check out The Pale Blue Eye. I enjoyed it immensely, but you have to be into this. If you don't like Edgar Allan Poe, this may not be the film for you. So I did want to mention it. Another film that I want to mention that I ended up loving, and I didn't know I was going to love it, was a film called Doggone. And it stars Rob Lowe. And in the story, Rob Lowe plays a man who has a son who has special needs, or at least I could be wrong on that minute detail, because I believe his son has special needs and he loses his dog. And I know this sounds very corny and trivial, but they end up going to look for the dog. And it's really this bonding moment between a father and son that is done so tastefully. Rob Lowe can act. I wasn't expecting this level of performance from him. And it really was something that I thought was a touching thing. As children grow and you become empty nesters, they're leaving your house. What happens to the parents? How do they deal with this? Who knew this dog was going to bring them together? I enjoyed it immensely. I would recommend it. I think it could be a family film. So if you want to kind of have a heartfelt film where you're not expecting to have these feelings and emotions, but they do bring it home with meaningful interactions between family members, this is the one for you. Doggone is the name of that film. Catherine, have you seen Doggone?
Never heard of it. I do have the Kel Blue Dot on my Netflix watch list, and it's been there for nearly a year. I need to get to it.
Okay. And the next film that I want to point out is a film that did very well in the box office. I know you've heard of it. You probably have already seen it as well, Catherine, and that's Megan. I hope this is the one that I'm saying it's right, that it came out. And I can't find the cover. Did it come out? It came out in January, right, Catherine?
Yep.
Okay, so I can't find the placard for it. Megan horror film. Maybe that'll work. I'm on IMDb, but it's like, I'm sorry, guys. I'm typing them in individually. I'm not going to find this way. But Megan is an incredible film. And it's, once again, I guess, kind of like an AI film, Catherine, where this young woman creates this I guess, robot or artificial intelligence, or whatever you want to call Megan. Why can't I find her? And she introduces Megan to her newly, here it is. So I know it says 2022. Why is this not working, guys? Just give me a second. I'm just going to pull up that thing for it. So I apologize. I'm a little slower than I should be pulling these up, but I will show it. And I did just want to show it because it was just so much fun to watch, Catherine. Have you seen Megan?
Yeah, I really didn't like it. I didn't care for the lead actress, and the killer doll type franchise is not, subgenre is just not for me. I've tried with multiple things. Like, I'll admit that the very original Child's Play has a very creepy atmosphere to it, but it's like, it just doesn't work. I mean, not for me. And I could kind of see where the ending was going. They kind of tease another type of, I'm not going to spoil it, but something else that they have in the house. I'm like, oh, okay, that's what's going to, save the day. And parts of the climax felt almost like, and then I was kind of wondering how they were going to relate the different plot things together. And once it kind of happens, it's like, oh, okay, kind of convenient. But yeah, I know a lot of people like this one, and it's well made for sure, especially with the effects, or the practical effects they're using for the actual robot. But it just wasn't for me.
I understand. And it became a very popular film this year. So I did want to mention that. And I think it did have, a good impact, a positive impact on the box office. May not have been the best film, but I enjoyed it so much. So I put it on my list of best films. If you want to see an entertaining film and you like horror and you like the genre, please do check out Megan. The next film I wanted to mention is a film. It's a film that, and I hope I'm doing this right. Yeah, here it is. Idris Elba plays a character called Luther. He has a television show that he was in for quite some time. I don't know if the show is still on, but I love that.
I think that this movie was done as a way to wrap up certain storylines, because they had like 5 seasons of TV and then they got kind of canceled, and they didn't have, they wanted to kind of finish, to wrap it up. And they announced they were doing it as a Netflix film, and so I think this is it.
Yeah, and I've been a longtime fan of Luther and Idris Elba as Luther, and this was such a fantastic film with Luther, and Idris was wonderful in it. Serkis is in it. He plays the villain. This was so much fun to watch, Catherine, and I was scared to death of Andy Serkis's character. He actually plays as himself, so you can see him physically in the film versus oftentimes we don't get to see him play a character, but I can't get to one point where he is. I thought it was fun. I think this Luther character is another one of those very popular detective, murder mystery characters out there. And Idris does not disappoint in this. I enjoyed this immensely. I thought it was such a fantastic film. A great way to wrap it up, as you said, Catherine. I really loved watching Idris in this film. So that's also on my list. Another one that is on my list that I have a feeling you've heard of, and it's probably still in the theaters. And certainly was, I don't even know how to describe it. It's this independent film about trafficking, about human trafficking that no one thought was going to do well, has had a lot up against it. And it's The Sound of Freedom. And, I think it's really interesting, Catherine, because sometimes I see these independent films and I'm not quite sure how I'm going to feel about them. And this one, there were some moments in it that I was terrified for the lead character as he was risking his life to save these children from essentially slavery. And even I didn't think there were some moments where he was going to make it out alive. And I think that got the point across. They could have done this film a number of different ways, but it became so popular. And one of the other victories of the film is that at the end of the film, they would say, do you want to go ahead and buy a ticket for somebody else? Go ahead and you can do that. Catherine, do you think we're going to see more movies do things like this where they'll say, if you want to go ahead and pay it forward, you can buy a ticket for someone else?
Well, what do you mean? Like they had a website or something you could go to, like a link to? Oh, okay. Yes. Maybe. I don't know. It makes sense because that was more of I think that was started out as a crowdfunding project, did it not? Like something like that. And then it gained a little bit more funding. So that's a way that they're trying to drum up more money for it. I didn't see it, but I've heard mixed things about it.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you want to see a movie that pretty much is bringing attention to human trafficking, this is the one. It is a good film. I enjoyed it. I think, it deserves all the accolades it's gotten. There's a lot of criticism about the film. And I did review the film, but I enjoyed it very much. So if you want to see something that does fight against that, check out The Sound of Freedom. The performances are good. It was fun to watch for me. And I have two more films, Catherine, and then I'm done. The first one is a film that I had no idea I was even going to see. Someone asked me if I wanted to do a watch party for the film. I said yes. And part of the appeal of the film is that it's about kind of like conspiracy theory. And it comes off initially as, this kind of odd concept. But as you're watching it, it's entertaining. Like, it's fun to watch. So the movie is called They Cloned Tyrone. And of course, it stars John Boyega and a bunch of other amazing actors. It's such a creative kind of foray into what I would call the, conspiracy theory idea. So I really like that. I love these conspiracy theories where it looks like everything's fine. And then you're like, oh, wait a minute, what is going on? If you want to kind of have a laugh at this, although some people took this very seriously, this film is meant for you to be entertaining and for you to have a laugh at it, and kind of be lighthearted with it. It should not depress you. This is meant for you to laugh and have fun and enjoy it. I really enjoyed this. I thought it was interesting. Someone took a lot of effort to create this fantasy and this whole world, and it comes off really good. I think they did a good job for what they're trying to do, and certainly a lot of talent in this cast of actors, including John Boyega, who does such a great job in it. So I put They Cloned Tyrone definitely as one of my favorites. And I have one more film, Catherine. Have you seen They Cloned Tyrone, Catherine?
No, I heard about it though.
Okay. Yeah. Well, there's one more film that I absolutely have to mention that I really enjoyed. And I didn't know I was going to enjoy it. I wanted to enjoy it. I didn't know how this was going to turn out. But the movie is called Thanksgiving. And the movie stars Patrick Dempsey. And the film, it's a horror film about Thanksgiving. And what I found interesting about the concept, and it's not necessarily the most original concept, but it just seems to work together so well. After like these riots that happen in a town, and people get killed, like for Black Friday,
I saw it.
It makes, yeah. Oh, you've seen this film?
Of course. I've been waiting 16 years for him to make this movie.
Well, Catherine, what was your thought of it?
I thought it actually held up pretty well compared to the trailer that it's based on. Because the trailer was a lot more absurdist and admittedly a lot more hilarious. Whereas this, I like how this isn't just a slasher because they find a way to incorporate the holiday throughout the whole thing. It's not just like like it could have happened on any day. It's like, no, this has everything to do with Thanksgiving and the traditions around it. And I thought it was really funny. Some sharp dialogue in there. They have a newcomer for your lead actress in this one. Patrick Dempsey gets a decent role in this as well as the sheriff. And again, it was a somewhat absurdist but funny holiday slasher whodunit film.
Yeah, Catherine, this one hits a lot of marks, doesn't it? Certainly it reminded me a lot of another film that I was fond of last year called Violent Night. It had like this certain tone to it where there was a legitimate story. And however, feels like slasher flick, but it feels somewhat fresh. It doesn't feel like a repeat of everything you've ever seen. And it feels like a legitimate gripe about the response to the horror of someone getting killed on Black Friday. And we've actually seen that in the news. That really has happened, Catherine, where people are going out for their holiday shopping and, someone gets killed and a lot of times it feels like nothing's being done about it. And I think it is very interesting to do that. I also liked, Catherine, the pairing of it with the Pilgrims like this, because it's in Plymouth. So it feels very kind of, it feels as if it makes a tie to those times, to Plymouth times, early Plymouth for some reason. And that's also feels very good as you're watching this. They're putting on this pageant and people are dressed as pilgrims. I really enjoyed that aspect of it as well. And I was not expecting to enjoy that throwback to the past, if you will, So yeah, I really enjoyed Thanksgiving, Catherine, and that's my last film of the year. I think Patrick Dempsey shines in this. And guys, anybody who hasn't seen Patrick Dempsey in this, go and check it out. It's such an enjoyable film. Thanksgiving, which is a horror film about Thanksgiving. So, Catherine, what a selection we've gone through in this past hour. Any final comments or thoughts about any of the films or anything you'd like to mention that we haven't mentioned? There's so many fantastic, biographies about singers like, I'm trying to think of, there was a Milli Vanilli doc. There was all these different things that came out this year. Anything else you wanted to mention that we haven't gone over?
Yeah, there were a few other movies that didn't make my list that I thought were good. There was Air, about the making of the Air Jordan shoes. That was a Prime Video film that got a brief theatrical release. That's another mid-budget movie about people. I thought it was with Matt Damon. I thought it was a decent movie. I thought, okay, that's kind of, again, one of those movies Hollywood used to make all the time that they don't anymore. So that was good. I thought Guardians 3 was a return to form for Marvel that they haven't had in a long time. There was this ridiculously absurdist comedy called Bottoms that came out in August about these girls who were like at the bottom of the social ladder at school, and they decided to start a fight club as a way to, like a female self-defense club as a way to get girlfriends. And it's just the level of absurdity. Like, for instance, the last time we played this high school in the football game, they murdered the quarterback, like actually murdered him. And it's like, at first I thought, are they joking? It's like, oh no, they're serious. So this is the level of absurdity that this world takes place in. And I thought it was really funny, even though, the script is, it's ridiculous. But I thought that was another funny one as well.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that. I also wanted to mention that I watched a David Beckham documentary about him and learned some things that I had no idea about his experience, as a footballer in the UK. And I also wanted to say that I did see the Hunger Games, the Snakes, and I can't remember what the total.
The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes.
Yes, and I liked it because I like the Hunger Games. I'm not going to put it on one of the best movies of 2023, but I enjoyed it very much. So, Catherine, any final thoughts and comments? Do you think 2023 was a very unusual year, seeing so many? What is your impression of 2023? Will 2024 top this year? Was this just such a crazy outlier year? What do you think?
I don't know. They had a ton of movies this year, and probably because of things that got delayed from the pandemic, which are just finally getting released. Because this summer we saw film after film just failing at the box office because probably because they were just releasing so many movies every week. It was like so much competition that they just cannibalized each other. Uh, like for instance, Mission Impossible, a movie which usually does big bucks at the box office, I think it finished under 400 or somewhere around there, or maybe above that. And that was another movie about AI, where AI is evil. We have to stop it right at the start of the actors strike. But people didn't rush out to see that either because the Barbenheimer phenomenon happened. And it's crazy how things like that happen. You can't plan for something like that. So yeah, it was a bit of an unusual year for movies. I liked that it was a bit of a return of the mid-budget movies, like that, the ones we spoke of. I hope there's more of those. I'm not really sure about what the titles are for next year. And I'm pretty sure there's a couple other movies yet to come out that are going to be probably pretty good. I can't remember exactly what they all are. Some other probably awards type contenders. A lot of stuff comes out around Christmas. But yeah. So I thought it was definitely an overcrowded year for movies. I don't think we're going to see Hollywood cram that many films into the spring, summer months again, because it just wasn't helpful for any of them.
Yeah, that's a very good point. And you and I are going to go see Aquaman, and we are going to review it on the channel, which is going to come out rather soon. But you're right, Catherine. It did feel like there were a lot of films that came out this year. Certainly a very difficult year to stand out, but quite a few did. And it did make for some interesting movie going. So, Catherine, thank you so much for joining me tonight to talk about your favorite movies of 2023, the best ones. I talked about my favorites. Many of you in the chat also mentioned so many things that you're interested in. Catherine, where can people find you?
You can find me at Slice Night at YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, and Letterboxd. You can find me currently every Thursday night at 7. Scotty and I are reviewing season 5 of Fargo on the Phantasmagorium show. We're having fun with that. And every second and fourth Sunday of the month, I'm on the Unifying Force on the Virtual Cantina Network. It's a Star Wars talk show, Star Wars channel. There's unboxings on that channel. There's shows about the Star Wars comics that come out with other people, and there's all sorts of stuff you guys and watch-alongs that sometimes we have. Now that the strike's over, we can bring back Star Wars celebrities for our watch-along, so you can check those out. And like we have a watch-along of Blade Runner with Kevin Thompson, who was in that. That's on the channel, and all sorts of cool things you can check out. So, yeah.
Well, guys, please do check out Catherine at everything she mentioned, also on the Phantasmagorium show YouTube channel, which she is on as well. Guys, please do.
The bottom one is the correct spelling of Phantasmagorium. I noticed the top one has an extra U in it in the gore section. Yeah, so the bottom section is how it's how the word is spelled.
All right. Thank you. Thank you for the pointing out the correction. And thank you so much, Catherine, for being here. Guys, please do subscribe to my YouTube channel, Positive Fandom, where I do all the parlay in the fandom as well. Guys, I hope you're subscribed to the Burnettwork as well. And Tom, I'm just looking for your link, Tom. Tom, our moderator, collaborator, and friend, Tom Jr. Jackson. We are all goof people. Tom, I want to thank you, as always, for being here and doing everything you do behind the scenes as well. Thank you so much, Tom. I can't find your link, but I'm sure it's there somewhere.
I did know,
but guys,
we did for my handle. Slice Night is all lowercase, but the front letter was capitalized, so they won't find it if it's so it's like all lowercase. I'm not sure if it's on this one, but I noticed it on the last one.
Well, I will change it and I'll correct it, Catherine. I apologize for that. So. And but guys, please do check out Catherine. Please do check out Tom. Please subscribe also to my YouTube channel. And guys, thank you so much for being here. I saw Laud Toth, my favorite. Mountie is here as well. And all of you who are here, thank you for sharing so much. The Richard is here today with everything that's coming up. We, of course, Catherine and I are going to do a preview of movies for 2024. And we are also going to review Aquaman as well. So there's much more that Catherine and I will be back. We're going to be back talking more movies. I assure you guys for that, for the rest of 2023 and into 2024. So guys, thank you everybody for being here and for the support of the channel. And guys, remember, no matter where you are in the galaxy, always remember to please be kind, everybody. Take care.